A glass shatters on a polished ballroom floor. A scream pierces the night. And Hercule Poirot's sharp eyes catch a fleeting shadow, a woman in red, vanishing into the crowd. Was she the killer or the next victim? Picture this: London, 1930s, a city buzzing with elegance and secrets. The air is thick with the scent of roses and cigar smoke as Hercule Poirot, the world's greatest detective, adjusts his pristine bow tie in front of a gilded mirror. He's been invited to a grand ball at the opulent Haverford Manor, hosted by the enigmatic Lord Reginald Haverford. The invitation, penned in gold ink, promises an evening of music, dance, and high society. But Poirot, with his little gray cells always at work, senses something amiss. Why him? Why now? As he steps into the grand hall, chandeliers sparkling like stars above, he's greeted by a swirl of laughter and the clink of champagne glasses. Yet beneath the glamour, there's a tension, a whisper of danger. This is no ordinary ball, and Poirot knows it. Let's set the scene properly. Haverford Manor is a sprawling estate, its walls lined with portraits of stern ancestors glaring down at the guests. The ballroom is alive with color ladies in shimmering gowns, gentlemen in crisp tuxedos, and a string quartet playing a haunting waltz. Poirot's eyes scan the room, noting every detail: the nervous twitch of a young heiress, the too-tight grip of a diplomat's hand on his glass, the fleeting glance of a stunning woman in a crimson dress, her smile sharp as a blade. Her name, he learns, is Lady Isabella Vane, a dancer of unparalleled grace and rumored ties to shadowy circles. The other guests include Sir Charles Wentworth, a retired military man with a booming laugh; Miss Clara Beaumont, a shy debutante with a knack for eavesdropping; and Dr. Julian Harrow, a chemist with a peculiar interest in rare poisons. Each one, Poirot muses, could be a player in a game he hasn't yet unraveled. Now, why is this ball so important? It's not just a social event, it's a stage. Lord Haverford, a man known for his love of theatrics, has gathered this eclectic group for a purpose. Rumors swirl that he's about to announce a major business deal, one that could shift fortunes and make enemies. Poirot, ever the observer, notices the way conversations hush when Haverford enters, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. The man exudes charm, but there's a hardness in his eyes. Poirot's intuition tells him this night will not end in mere pleasantries. To keep you hooked, let me share a tip for enjoying a mystery like this. Always watch the quiet ones. Loudest laugh or the boldest gesture often hides the truth, but the silent observer, they're the ones with secrets. As the evening progresses, Poirot mingles, his polite questions cutting through small talk like a scalpel. He learns that Lady Isabella has a mysterious past. Some say she's a spy, others a scorned lover seeking revenge. Sir Charles, meanwhile, boasts about his war days, but avoids questions about his recent financial troubles. Clara, the debutante, seems to know more than she lets on, her eyes darting to Isabella every few minutes. And Dr. Harrow, he's too interested in the contents of everyone's glasses. Poirot's mind is already spinning, piecing together fragments of motive and opportunity. Then, just as the clock strikes 10, a piercing scream echoes through the hall. A glass lies shattered on the floor, and Lord Haverford is slumped in his chair, his face pale, his breath gone. The music stops, and all eyes turn to Poirot. This is where the dance with death begins. Poirot steps forward, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos. He examines the scene. No visible wounds, no obvious poison, but a faint almond-like scent lingers in the air. The guests are in shock, but Poirot's little gray cells are alight. Was it the champagne? A hidden needle? Or something more sinister? He notices Lady Isabella slipping toward the exit, her red dress a stark contrast against the panicked crowd. Is she fleeing or chasing a clue? The chapter closes with Poirot vowing to uncover the truth, his mustache twitching with determination. The ball is over, but the mystery has just begun. So what's next? In the next chapter, we'll dive into Poirot's first investigation, where he uncovers a cryptic note hidden in Haverford's pocket. Stick with me to see how the clues start to unravel. If you're loving this mystery, hit that like button and subscribe for more thrilling tales. Comment below, who do you think did it? Let's keep the suspense alive as we waltz deeper into the dance with death. The ballroom moments ago, a glittering stage of elegance, now feels like a gilded cage. The chandeliers cast long shadows as guests huddle in nervous clusters, their whispers sharp with fear. Hercule Poirot stands at the center of the chaos, his sharp eyes fixed on the lifeless form of Lord Reginald Haverford slumped in his velvet chair. The scream that shattered the night still echoes in everyone's minds, but Poirot's focus is unwavering. Death has made its entrance, and he, the great detective, is ready to meet it head-on. Tonight we'll follow Poirot as he takes his first steps into the investigation, uncovering a cryptic note that hints at secrets buried deep within Haverford Manor. If you're new to this mystery, buckle up. This is where the plot thickens. And if you're loving the suspense, don't forget to like and subscribe to catch every twist. Let's dive into the scene. The air in the ballroom is heavy, tinged with the faint, bitter scent of almonds that Poirot noticed earlier. The string quartet has abandoned their instruments, and the guests are frozen, unsure whether to flee or stay. Poirot, ever composed, kneels beside Lord Haverford's body, his gloved hands moving with precision. He's no stranger to death, but each case is a puzzle, and this one feels particularly intricate. The host's face is pale, his eyes wide open, frozen in a moment of shock. No blood, no visible wounds, just that peculiar scent and a glass of champagne now spilled across the polished floor. Poirot's mind races. Poison, perhaps, but how was it delivered? And why here, in front of 100 witnesses? He straightens up, his mustache twitching as he surveys the room. The key to this mystery, he knows, lies in the details. In the people who surround him first. Let's talk about the guests, because every good mystery hinges on its players. Poirot's keen observation has already catalogued the key figures. There's Lady Isabella Vane, the dancer in the crimson dress, whose swift movement toward the exit caught his eye. She's back now, standing near a marble pillar, her face a mask of calm that doesn't quite reach her eyes. Then there's Sir Charles Wentworth, the retired military man, pacing near the bar. His loud voice now subdued, but his hands clenched into fists. Miss Clara Beaumont, the shy debutante, hovers near a group of older women, her delicate frame trembling, yet her gaze keeps flicking to Isabella, and Dr. Julian Harrow, the chemist, is oddly detached, scribbling notes in a small leather-bound book as if studying the scene rather than mourning. Each one, Poirot muses, is a thread in the tapestry of this crime, but which thread will lead him to the truth? Now let's get to the heart of this chapter, the first clue. Poirot, with the permission of the shaken butler, Mr. Grayson, begins a meticulous search of Lord Haverford's body. The man's tailored suit is impeccable, but Poirot's deft fingers find something in the inner pocket of his jaqueta, folded piece of paper, creased and slightly worn as if carried for days. He unfolds it carefully, aware of the eyes watching him. The note is written in a hurried scrawl, the ink smudged but legible. The rose wilts at midnight. Trust no one. 5 words, cryptic and chilling. Poirot's brow furrows. A warning? A threat? Or a message meant for someone else? The mention of midnight is particularly striking, as the clock had struck 10 when Haverford collapsed. Was the note a clue to the timing of the murder, or something else entirely? Poirot tucks the note into his own pocket, his mind already spinning with possibilities. To understand the note, Poirot needs context, so he begins questioning the guests. He approaches Lady Isabella first, her elegance undimmed, even in the face of tragedy. "Monsieur Poirot," she says, her voice smooth as silk, "I barely knew Lord Haverford. I was invited for my dancing, nothing more." But Poirot notices the way her fingers twist the edge of her glove, a small tell of nerves. He presses gently, asking if she saw anything unusual. She hesitates, then mentions a cloaked figure near the garden doors, just before the scream of figure she couldn't identify. Is she deflecting, or offering a genuine clue? Next, Poirot speaks to Sir Charles, who blusters about the indecency of murder at a ball, but admits to a recent argument with Haverford over a failed investment. Nothing serious, he insists, but his flushed face suggests otherwise. Miss Clara, when questioned, stammers that she saw nothing, yet her eyes dart to Isabella again. Dr. Harrow, meanwhile, is evasive, claiming he was studying the chemical composition of the champagne for personal interest. Poirot's little gray cells hum this group is a tangle of secrets. Let's pause for a practical tip. When unraveling a mystery, whether in a story or real life, always look for what doesn't fit. Poirot's genius lies in noticing the odd. Detailed the smudged ink, the nervous glance, the scent of almonds. If you're trying to solve a problem, train yourself to spot the anomaly. Write down everything you observe, then circle what feels out of place. It's often the key to the bigger picture. Back to our story, Poirot now turns his attention to the physical evidence. He examines the spilled champagne glass, noting its position on the floor. The liquid has spread in a peculiar pattern, suggesting it was dropped deliberately rather than knocked over in a struggle. He also inspects the table where Haverford sat, finding a faint residue of white powder on the tablecloth. Poison, perhaps? He carefully collects a sample. Knowing Dr. Harrow's expertise might come in handy whether as a witness or a suspect, the almond-like scent is another puzzle piece. Poirot knows it's a hallmark of cyanide, a fast-acting poison that could explain Haverford's sudden collapse. But cyanide requires close contacts. Someone would have had to slip it into his drink or food. The waitstaff, all vetted by the butler, seem unlikely culprits, but Poirot makes a mental note to interview them. He also considers the timing. The scream came just after the clock struck 10, yet the note mentioned midnight. Was the murder premature, or is the note a red herring? Poirot's mind races through scenarios: a jealous rival, a betrayed partner, a business deal gone wrong. Haverford's wealth and influence made him a target, but the method, public. Brazen suggests a personal motive, not just greed. As Poirot steps back to survey the room, he notices something else. A single red rose, trampled on the floor near the garden doors. It's a small detail, but it echoes the note's mention of a wilting rose. He picks it up, its petals still soft, but bruised. Was it dropped by the cloaked figure Isabella mentioned, or is it a symbol of something deeper? Rose's intuition tells him this rose is no accident. He glances at Lady Isabella, who's now speaking softly with Clara. Are they conspiring, or merely comforting each other? The other guests are growing restless, demanding answers, but Poirot remains calm. He knows haste leads to mistakes. Instead, he instructs the butler to secure the manor. No one leaves until he's had time to think. Let's wrap up this chapter with a reflection. Poirot's strength is his patience, his ability to see the puzzle before the pieces fully emerge. The cryptic note, the almond scent, the grand ballroom of Haverford Manor, once a dazzling spectacle of light and laughter, now feels like a stage frozen mid-act. The chandeliers above cast a cold glow over the shaken guests, their faces a mix of fear, suspicion, and curiosity. Hercule Poirot stands apart, his small, precise figure a beacon of calm amidst the storm. The cryptic note, the rose wilts at midnight. Trust no one burns in his mind. Its words a riddle that demands solving. Lord Haverford's lifeless body has been discreetly moved to a side room, but the scent of almonds and the memory of that piercing scream linger. Poirot's little gray cells are buzzing, piecing together the fragments. The spilled champagne, the trampled red rose, the white powder on the tablecloth. Now he's ready to venture deeper into the manor's secrets, and tonight, a hidden journal will pull back the curtain on Lord Haverford's shadowy world. If you're hooked on this mystery, stick with me. It's about to get even more thrilling. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with every twist. Let's set the stage. The manor is a labyrinth of opulence, its corridors lined with dark wood paneling and flickering gas lamps that cast long, wavering shadows. The guests have been asked to remain in the ballroom under the watchful eye of Mr. Grayson, the butler, while Poirot, with his characteristic blend of charm and authority, secures permission to explore Haverford's private study. On the second floor, tucked away behind a heavy oak door. As Poirot steps inside, He's greeted by the scent of old leather and ink. The study is a treasure trove of secrets. Towering bookshelves, a mahogany desk cluttered with papers, and a portrait of a younger Haverford, his eyes piercing even in paint. Poirot's instincts tell him this room holds answers. But he must tread carefully. Every object could be a clue. Or a trap. Before we dive into the discovery, let's revisit our key players, because a murder like this thrives on motive. Lady Isabella Vane, the dancer in the crimson dress, remains a puzzle. Her claim of being a mere performer rings hollow to Poirot, especially after her mention of a cloaked figure near the garden doors. Is she deflecting suspicion, or did she truly see something? Sir Charles Wentworth, the retired military man, is all bluster, but his financial troubles and recent argument with Haverford make him a suspect worth watching. Miss Clara Beaumont, the nervous debutante, seems to know more than she's saying, her eyes always trailing Isabella. And Dr. Julian Harrow, the chemist with a penchant for poisons, is too calm, too analytical, his little notebook filled with observations that could be innocent or incriminating. Poirot knows that one of these guests, or perhaps someone yet unseen, holds the key to the murder. Now, let's get to the heart of this chapter. The hidden journal. Poirot begins his search methodically, his gloved hands gliding over the desk's surface. He opens drawers, finding nothing but pens, ledgers, and a half-empty bottle of brandy. But Poirot is not one to be deterred by first impressions. He taps the underside of the desk, listening for hollow sounds, and his persistence pays off. A faint click reveals a hidden compartment beneath the desk's false bottom. Inside, wrapped in a velvet cloth, is a slim leather journal, its pages yellowed, but intact. Poirot's heart quickens. This is no ordinary diary. He opens it to find Haverford's precise handwriting, detailing not just business dealings, but personal vendettas, coded messages, and names that send a chill down even Poirot's spine. Journal's entries paint a picture of a man surrounded by enemies. One passage, dated a month ago, reads, "SC threatens ruin over the failed venture. He does not understand the stakes." Poirot's mind leaps to Sir Charles. Could SC be him, and was the failed venture the argument Charles downplayed? Another entry mentions a dancer with a serpent smile who Haverford suspects of spying for a rival. Lady Isabella's crimson gown and enigmatic demeanor flash in Poirot's mind. Could she be the dancer in question? Third entry is more cryptic. The chemist knows too much. His experiments must be stopped. Dr. Harrow's interest in the champagne and his knowledge of poisons make this a glaring clue. And then, tucked between the pages, Poirot finds a pressed rose petal, its edges curling like a warning. The note's mention of a wilting rose echoes here, tying the journal to the crime. Let's pause for a practical tip, because mysteries like this teach us how to think like a detective. When faced with a complex problem, whether it's a murder or a personal challenge, break it down into layers. Poirot doesn't just read the journal, he cross-references it with what he's observed. The guest's behaviors, the physical evidence, the timing. Try this in your own life. Write down the facts, then look for connections. If something feels off, like a rose petal in a journal, don't dismiss it. It might be the thread that unravels everything. Now, back to the story. Poirot spends the next hour poring over the journal, deciphering its codes. Some entries use a simple substitution cipher, which he cracks by noting repeated letters. One decoded message reads, "Meeting at Midnight Garden. Trust only the shadow. Midnight." Again, another link to the cryptic note. Was Haverford planning to meet someone only to be killed 2 hours early? Poirot's investigation doesn't stop at the journal. He examines the study further, noticing a window slightly ajar, its latch loose. Outside, the manor's gardens stretch into darkness, a perfect place for a cloaked figure to slip away. He steps onto the balcony, the night air cool against his face, and spots a faint footprint in the soil below a woman's shoe, small and narrow. Lady Isabella's elegant heels come to mind, but Poirot cautions himself against jumping to conclusions. He returns to the study, where a photograph on the desk catches his eye. Haverford with a young woman. Not Isabella, but someone with Clara Beaumont's delicate features. Could Clara be more than a shy debutante? Perhaps a relative or someone with a deeper tie to the victim. To test his theories, Poirot decides to confront the guests with subtle questions, using the journal's clues to guide him. Back in the ballroom, he approaches Sir Charles first, casually mentioning the failed venture. Charles's face reddens, and he snaps. Haverford was a fool to trust those foreign investors. His outburst confirms a motive but not guilt. Next, Poirot speaks to Dr. Harrow, asking about his experiments. Harrow's eyes narrow, and he mutters something about academic curiosity before excusing himself. Clara, when questioned about her connection to Haverford, blushes and claims she only met him tonight, but her trembling hands betray her. Lady Isabella, ever poised, deflects Poirot's questions about the garden with a laugh, saying she was too busy dancing to notice shadows, yet her eyes linger on the garden doors. The physical evidence is still nagging at Poirot. He returns to the ballroom to re-examine the table where Haverford died. The white powder on the tablecloth now, safely stored in a handkerchief, is his next focus. He suspects it's linked to the almond-like scent, but without a lab he can't be sure. He questions the butler, Mr. Grayson, about the champagne's origin. Grayson confirms it was a special vintage, served only to Haverford's table. This narrows the window of opportunity. Someone close to Haverford had access to his glass. Poirot also revisits the trampled rose, now in his pocket alongside the note. Its presence near the garden doors suggests a connection to the cloaked figure, but who dropped it, and why? As the chapter draws to a close, Poirot feels the weight of the mystery deepening. The journal has revealed Haverford's enemies, but it's also raised new questions. Was the air in Haverford Manor grows thicker with every passing hour, the weight of suspicion pressing down on the guests like a storm cloud. Hercule Poirot, his sharp eyes glinting in the dim light of the ballroom, feels the pulse of the mystery. Quickening, the cryptic note, the hidden journal, the trampled rose all point to a web of deceit spun long before Lord Haverford's final breath. The faint almond scent of poison still lingers in his memory, and the journal's coded messages about midnight meetings and shadowy figures have set his little gray cells ablaze. Now, as the clock ticks past midnight, Poirot is ready to venture beyond the ballroom's gilded facade into the manor's underbelly. Tonight, a secret passage will lead him to an unexpected witness, and the dance with death will take a dangerous turn. If you're caught up in this suspense, stick with me. The clues are about to get darker. Hit that like button and subscribe to stay in the mystery. Let's paint the scene. The ballroom, though still grand, feels claustrophobic. It's opulent. Chandeliers now casting eerie shadows across the faces of the guests. They're restless, whispering accusations and casting furtive glances. Lady Isabella Vane stands by a window, her crimson dress a stark contrast to the moonlit gardens beyond. Sir Charles Wentworth paces near the bar, his military bluster replaced by a nervous energy, as Clara Beaumont clings to the edge of a group, her eyes darting between Isabella and the garden doors. Dr. Julian Harrow. Ever the oddity continues scribbling in his notebook, his detachment unnerving. Poirot, however, is focused elsewhere. The journal's mention of a meeting at Midnight Garden and the footprint he found beneath the study's balcony gnawed him. He suspects the manor holds more than meets the eye, hidden spaces where secrets are kept. Poirot's first move is to return to the study where the journal was found. The room is as he left it, the mahogany desk, the portrait of Haverford, the slightly ajar window. But now, with the house quieter, he notices something new, a faint draft. It's not from the window, but from behind a bookcase. Poirot's instincts. Fleury runs his fingers along the shelf, pressing gently until a soft click echoes in the silence. The bookcase swings inward, revealing a narrow stone passage, its walls damp and lined with cobwebs. A secret passage in Haverford Manor? This is no surprise to Poirot. Such grand estates often hide their truths in hidden corridors. He lights a small lantern from the desk, its flickering glow illuminating the passage's descent into darkness. With a steady step, he enters, his mind alert for danger. Let's revisit our suspects, because this discovery shifts the game. Lady Isabella's mention of a cloaked figure near the garden doors now seems more significant. could they have used this passage to move unseen? Sir Charles's financial troubles and his argument with Haverford suggest a man desperate enough to sneak through shadows. Clara's nervous glances and her possible connection to Haverford, hinted at by the photograph, make her a wild card. And Dr. Harrow's knowledge of poisons and his odd behavior point to a mind capable of planning a murder in secret. Poirot knows the passage could be the key to how the killer moved, but it also raises a question. Who else knew about it? As he descends, the air grows colder, and the faint sound of dripping water echoes. The passage smells of earth and age, a stark contrast to the manor's polished elegance. Now, let's dive into the heart of this chapter, the unexpected witness. The passage twists downward, leading to a small vault-like room beneath the manor. Inside, Poirot finds a dusty table, a single chair, and a scattering of paper's old letters, some in Haverford's hand, others in unfamiliar script. But what stops him cold is the sound of a stifled sob. In the corner, half hidden by shadows, is a young woman, her face streaked with tears. She's no guest from the ball. Her simple dress and worn shoes mark her as a servant. She introduces herself as Emily, the housemaid, and her fear is palpable. "I didn't mean to see anything, sir," she whispers, her voice trembling. Poirot, ever gentle with the frightened, coaxes her story out. Emily was cleaning the study earlier that evening when she overheard Haverford arguing with someone. Man's voice, loud and angry, mentioning debts and betrayal. She hid in the passage to avoid being seen, only to stumble upon this room. Emily's tale is a goldmine of clues. She describes the man's voice as deep, with a military cadence or Charles, perhaps. She also saw a woman in a red dress near the garden doors earlier, moving quickly as if following someone. Lady Isabella's crimson gown flashes in Poirot's mind, but he keeps his thoughts guarded. Emily admits she knows about the passage it's used by the staff to move discreetly during events but swears she told no one. Poirot presses her gently. "Did she see anyone else tonight?" Emily hesitates, then mentions a shadow in the passage just before the scream, someone moving too fast for her to identify. A cloaked figure, perhaps? Her story aligns with Isabella's, but it also deepens the mystery. Is the shadow the killer, or someone else caught in the web? Here's a practical tip for mystery fans. When piecing together a puzzle, always listen to the overlooked. Emily, a mere housemaid, holds clues that grand guests might never reveal. In life, pay attention to the quiet voices, the coworker who overhears a key detail, the friend who notices something off. Write down what they say and cross-check it with the bigger picture. It's how Poirot builds his cases, and it's a skill you can use too. Back to the story, Poirot examines the room further. The letters on the table are a mix of business correspondence and personal notes. Al mentioning a delivery at midnight for a special shipment. Could this be tied to Haverford's business deal, the one rumored to have made enemies? Another letter, unsigned, warns Haverford to beware the serpent's dance. The imagery of a serpent echoes the journal's description of a dancer, with a serpent's smile pointing again to Isabella. Poirot's mind races as he connects the dots. The passage likely leads to the garden, explaining the footprint and the trampled rose. But who used it? He asked Emily to show him the passages. Exit, and she leads him through a narrow tunnel to a hidden door behind a rose trellis in the garden. The door is concealed by vines, invisible unless you know where to look. Outside, the night is still. But Poirot spots another clue. A scrap of fabric, dark and torn, caught on a thorn. It's not from Isabella's crimson gown, but it could belong to the cloaked figure. He pockets it, his mind turning to the timing. The journal and note mentioned midnight, yet Haverford died at 10. Was the murder a rushed act, or was the midnight meeting a decoy to throw off suspicion? Returning to the ballroom, Poirot decides to test his new clues. He approaches Sir Charles, casually mentioning debts and watching for a reaction. Charles's face tightens, and he admits to a heated discussion with Haverford, but insists it was just business. Poirot then speaks to Isabella, asking about the garden. She claims she was dancing all evening, but her eyes flicker when he mentions a hidden passage. Clara, when questioned, seems genuinely unaware of any secret roots.
Oh.
But her nervousness suggests she's hiding something else. Dr. Harrow, meanwhile, is intrigued by Poirot's mention of the almond scent, offering to analyze the powder Poirot found. Is he helping or covering his tracks? Poirot declines for now, preferring to keep the evidence close, as the chapter nears its end. Poirot reflects on the passage's significance. It's a literal and metaphorical link to the manor's secrets, a path the killer might have used to strike unseen. Emily's testimony, the torn fabric, the letters, they all point to a plot deeper than a simple poisoning. Was Haverford's death about money, revenge, or something more personal? The serpent's dance and the shadow linger in Poirot's thoughts, as does the rose imagery tying the clues together. He knows the police will soon take over, but their methods lack his finesse. Must act quickly to uncover the next piece of the puzzle. Let's wrap up with a look ahead. In the next chapter, Poirot will confront Dr. Harrow about his chemical expertise, leading to a shocking revelation about the poison's source. The dance with death is heating up, and every step brings Poirot closer to the truth or to danger. If you're loving this mystery, smash that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with your guess. Who's the killer, and what's their motive? Let's keep unraveling this web together. The night at Haverford Manor grows darker, both in shadow and in secrets. The ballroom, once alive with music and laughter, now hums with a different energy, fearful whispers, sidelong glances, and the weight of an unsolved murder. Hercule Poirot, his impeccable suit, untouched by the chaos, stands like a lighthouse in a storm, his little gray cells working tirelessly. The cryptic note, the hidden journal, the secret passage, and the tearful housemaid Emily have all added pieces to the puzzle of Lord Haverford's death. The faint almond-like scent, the trampled rose, and the torn fabric from the garden door point to a killer who moves with precision and purpose. Now, Poirot turns his attention to the poison itself, suspecting that Dr. Julian Harrow, the chemist, with a curious notebook, holds the key to this deadly riddle. Get ready for a chapter packed with revelations that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. If this mystery's got you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe to catch every pulse-pounding moment. Let's dive into the scene. The manor's grandeur feels oppressive now, its high ceilings and gilded walls closing in as the clock ticks past 1 in the morning. The guests are confined to the ballroom, their patience fraying under Mr. Grayson's watchful eye. Poirot, however, has slipped away to a small parlor off the main hall where he's set up a makeshift investigation hub. On the table before him lie his clues, the cryptic note, the rose wilts at midnight. Trust no one, the journal with its coded warnings, the trampled rose petal, the torn fabric, and the handkerchief containing the mysterious white powder from Haverford's table. The almond-like scent, a hallmark of cyanide, is the thread. He's pulling now. Poirot knows that understanding the poison's source could unmask the killer. And Dr. Harrow's expertise makes him the perfect person to interrogate or suspect. Before we unravel the poison's secret, let's recap our players, because this mystery thrives on their tangled motives. Lady Isabella Vane, the enigmatic dancer in crimson, is a master of deflection. Her story about a cloaked figure near the garden doors, both intriguing and suspicious. Sir Charles Wentworth, the blustering military man, has admitted to a heated argument with Haverford over a failed investment, his temper a potential trigger for murder. Miss Clara Beaumont, the shy debutante, seems connected to Haverford through that photograph in his study, her nervousness suggesting hidden knowledge. And Dr. Julian Harrow, with his chemical expertise and detached demeanor, is a walking question. Mark, his notebook, a potential trove of clues or a record of guilt. Then there's Emily, the housemaid, whose tearful account of an overheard argument and a shadowy figure in the passage adds another layer to the mystery. Poirot's mind is a chessboard, each piece moving closer to checkmate. Now let's get to the heart of this chapter, the poison's secret. Poirot invites Dr. Harrow to the parlor under the pretense of needing his scientific insight. Harrow arrives, his thin frame and sharp eyes giving him the look of a man who sees too much. Poirot begins with disarming politeness, asking about the almond-like scent. Cyanide, most likely, Harrow says, his tone clinical. It's fast, effective, and leaves that distinctive odor. But when Poirot reveals the white powder, Harrow's composure falters just for a moment. "May I?" he asks, reaching for the handkerchief. Poirot allows it, watching closely as Harrow examines the powder under a magnifying glass he pulls from his pocket. Potassium cyanide, Harrow confirms, but not in its usual crystalline form. This has been ground fine, almost like dust. Poirot's eyes narrow. And how, mon ami, might one deliver such a poison in a crowded ballroom? Harrow hesitates, then suggests the champagne is the most likely vehicle. A small dose, dissolved in liquid, would act within minutes, he explains. Poirot nods, recalling the spilled glass near Haverford's body. But here's the twist. Harrow reveals that cyanide, in this powdered form, is unstable and requires careful handling. It could have been prepared only hours before the ball, he says, by someone with access to a lab. Poirot's mind flashes to Harrow's own expertise. Could the chemist have crafted the poison himself? Or is he being framed by someone who knows his skills? Poirot presses further, asking if Harrow noticed anything unusual about the champagne. Harrow admits he tested a sample earlier not for poison, he claims, but for acidity levels. His notebook, he says, contains his findings. Poirot requests to see it, and Harrow reluctantly hands it over. The notebook is a goldmine. Pages of chemical formulas, sketches of glassware, and notes on cyanide's properties fill the margins, but one entry stands out, a diagram of a small vial labeled Haverford's Reserve. Poirot's pulse quickens. "What is this, doctor?" he asks, his voice soft but piercing. Harrow stammers, claiming it's a hypothetical sketch, not evidence of wrongdoing. But Poirot isn't convinced. The vial matches the size of one he noticed in the ballroom, tucked behind a floral arrangement near Haverford's table, he excuses. Harrow, keeping the notebook, and heads back to the ballroom to retrieve the vial. It's still there, half hidden by roses, its glass glinting faintly. Inside is a trace of white powder identical to the one on the tablecloth. The poison's delivery method is becoming clear. But who placed it there? Let's pause for a tip to keep you engaged, because solving a mystery like this is as much about thinking like Poirot as it is about the story. When you're piecing together a puzzle, whether it's a whodunit or a real-life problem, focus on the how. The method of a crime often reveals the mind behind it. Here, the powdered cyanide suggests planning, access, and expertise. In your own life, if you're tackling a challenge, ask, how did this situation arise? The answer often points to the culprit or the solution. Write it down, map it out, and look for patterns. Now, back to our tale. Poirot examines the vial closely, noting a faint smudge on its rim, a fingerprint. Perhaps he wraps it carefully, knowing it could be a breakthrough, but he needs more to tie it to a suspect, to dig deeper. Poirot questions the butler, Mr. Grayson, about the champagne. Grayson confirms that Haverford's table received a private vintage, poured from a specific bottle. It was a gift, Grayson says, delivered this morning with a note for Lord Haverford. Poirot's ears prick up. A note. Grayson nods, producing a crumpled card from his pocket. He reads a toast. To new ventures? No signature, but the handwriting matches the journal's coded entries. Was the bottle itself the murder weapon, laced with cyanide before it reached the table? Poirot asks to see the bottle, and Grayson leads him to the kitchen, where it sits among empty crates. The cork is intact, but a tiny puncture mark on its side catches Poirot's needle, perhaps used to inject the poison. This was no impulsive act. It was meticulously planned. Poirot's next move is to confront the guests with this new evidence, but he does so subtly, weaving his questions into casual conversation. He approaches Lady Isabella, mentioning the champagne gift. Her eyes flicker, but she claims ignorance, saying she drank only wine. Sir Charles, however, grows agitated when Poirot mentions the bottle, muttering about shady deals and Haverford's reckless partners. Clara, when asked, says she saw a waiter linger near Haverford's table, but her description is vague, deliberately so. Poirot's suspicions deepen when he notices Clara clutching a small locket, engraved with a rose. Another rose reference, tying back to the note and the trampled petal. Is Clara more involved than she seems? As the night wears on, Poirot reflects on the poison's implications. Cyanide is a bold choice, fast, dramatic, and risky. The killer wanted Haverford's death to be a spectacle, a message. But to whom? The journal's warnings about a serpent's dance and a chemist who knows too much point to Isabella and Harrow. But the locket and Clara's evasiveness suggest a personal connection. What of the midnight meeting that never happened? Was it a ruse? Or was Haverford killed to prevent it? Poirot's mind races, but his calm demeanor never falters. He knows the vial, the bottle, and the notebook are pieces of a larger picture one he's determined to complete. Let's wrap up with a look ahead to keep you glued to this mystery. In the next chapter, Poirot will uncover a shocking connection between Clara and Haverford, hidden in that rose-engraved locket. The dance with death is spinning faster. The night at Haverford Manor has grown heavy with secrets, each one a thread in the intricate web Hercule Poirot is determined to unravel. The ballroom, once a stage for elegance, now feels like a chessboard where every guest is a piece and one is a killer. The cryptic note, the hidden journal, the secret passage, the poisoned champagne, and the tearful housemaid Emily have all deepened the mystery of Lord Haverford's murder. The almond-like scent of cyanide, the trampled rose, and the tiny vial of white powder point to a calculated crime. But it's the rose-engraved locket in Miss Clara Beaumont's trembling hands that now draws Poirot's sharp gaze. Tonight we'll uncover a shocking connection between Clara and Haverford, one that threatens to turn the investigation upside down. If you're gripped by this suspense, hold on tight. This chapter's twists will keep you guessing. That like button and subscribe to dive deeper into the dance with death. Let's set the stage. The manor's opulent ballroom is a shadow of its earlier grandeur, its chandeliers casting a dim, almost accusatory light over the guests. It's past 2 in the morning, and exhaustion mixes with fear as they wait, confined under the butler's watchful eye. Poirot, however, is a study in focus, his small frame radiating quiet authority. He's retreated to the parlor, his makeshift command center, where the clues are laid out. The cryptic note, the rose wilts at midnight. Trust no one. The journal with its coded warnings, the torn fabric from the garden, the vial of cyanide, and the punctured champagne cork, but it's Clara's locket, glimpsed in the ballroom, that now occupies his thoughts. Its rose engraving echoes the note, the journal, and the trampled petal, a pattern too deliberate to ignore. Poirot knows that to crack this case, he must uncover Clara's role, and he's ready to confront her. Before we dive into the locket's secret, let's revisit our suspects, because this mystery thrives on their tangled lies. Lady Isabella, vain, the dancer in crimson, remains elusive. Her story about a cloaked figure near the garden doors, both compelling and convenient. Sir Charles Wentworth, the military man, is all bluster. But his financial ruin and argument with Haverford make him volatile. Dr. Julian Harrow. The chemist is a puzzle, his notebook filled with cyanide sketches that could prove expertise. Guilt. Emily, the housemaid, offered a glimpse of an overheard argument and a shadowy figure, but her fear suggests she's holding back. And then there's Clara Beaumont, the shy debutante, whose nervous glances and rose-engraved locket hint at a deeper connection to Haverford. The photograph in his study, showing a younger woman resembling Clara, only fuels Poirot's suspicions. Is she a victim, a witness, or something more? Now, let's uncover the heart of this chapter, the locket's secret. Poirot returns to the ballroom, his eyes locking onto Clara, who's seated near a window, clutching her locket as if it's a lifeline. He approaches with his usual charm, his voice soft but probing. Mademoiselle Beaumont, your locket is most intriguing. May I see it? Clara's face pales, her fingers tightening around the silver trinket. She hesitates, then reluctantly hands it over, her eyes darting to the floor, or opens the locket with care, revealing a tiny portrait inside a young woman. Unmistakably Clara, standing beside a smiling Lord Haverford. The photograph matches the one in the study. But this one has an inscription on the back. To my dearest Clara, forever my rose. Poirot's mustache twitches. This is no casual acquaintance, Clara, and Haverford shared a bond, one she's kept hidden. Poirot presses Clara gently, his questions like a dance, graceful but relentless. Mademoiselle, you did not mention your closeness to Lord Haverford. Why? Clara's voice trembles as she admits she was his ward years ago, taken in after her parents' death. Haverford treated her like a daughter, she says, but their relationship grew strained when he began his risky business ventures. He changed, she whispers, tears welling. He was obsessed with power, with secrets. Poirot notes her emotion, but also her evasion. She avoids mentioning the locket's significance or why she was so nervous around Lady Isabella. When he asks about the rose imagery, Clara falters, saying it was a nickname Haverford gave her. Nothing more, but Poirot senses a lie. The rose ties too neatly to the note, and the trampled petal was Clara the rose meant to wilt at midnight. Here's a tip to keep you hooked, because mysteries like this are as much about the journey as the solution. When unraveling a puzzle, whether in a story or real life, look for emotional tells. Clara's tears and trembling hands reveal more than her words. In your own challenges, watch for what people don't say, their hesitations, their glances. Jot down these cues and compare them to the facts. It's how Poirot separates truth from deception, and you can too. Back to the story, Poirot decides to cross-reference Clara's story with other clues. He recalls the journal's mention of a dancer with a serpent's smile. He wonders if Clara's connection to Haverford made her a target or a threat. He also considers the photograph in the study, which showed Clara at a younger age. Was Haverford's affection paternal, or did it hide a darker motive? To dig deeper, Poirot revisits the journal, flipping to a page he hadn't fully deciphered. Using the cipher key he cracked earlier, he decodes a new entry. Clara knows the truth about the deal. She must be protected. Poirot's mind races. What truth did Clara know? Is it tied to the business deal rumored to have sparked enemies? He returns to the ballroom to question Clara further, but she slipped away, leaving only a faint scent of lavender. Alarmed, Poirot searches the room and finds her near the garden doors, staring into the darkness. "Mademoiselle, you must tell me everything," he insists. Clara breaks down, admitting she overheard Haverford discussing a secret deal with foreign investors, a deal that involves smuggling rare chemicals, possibly cyanide. She didn't know details, she claims, but Haverford warned her to stay silent, saying her life depended on it. This revelation shifts the case. The special shipment mentioned in the journal's letters could be the chemicals. And Dr. Harrow's expertise makes him a prime suspect again. But Clara's fear suggests she's not the killer unless she's playing a masterful game. Poirot asks about the locket's inscription, and Clara confesses it was a gift from Haverford on her 18th birthday, a symbol of their bond. But why hide it? I was ashamed, she says. People whispered about us, saying it was improper. Poirot senses there's more, perhaps jealousy from another guest, like Isabella, who might have seen Clara as a rival. He also considers Sir Charles, whose financial ruin could stem from this deal gone wrong. Poirot's next move is to re-examine the physical evidence with Clara's story in mind. Returns to the parlor, studying the vial of cyanide and the punctured champagne cork. Smuggling angle suggests the poison was no ordinary purchase. It was likely part of the special shipment. He questions Mr. Grayson, the butler, about deliveries to the manor. Grayson recalls a crate arriving that morning, labeled as wine but handled with unusual care. Poirot inspects the kitchen again, finding the crate in a storage room. Inside, beneath a layer of straw, is a small locked box, its surface etched with a rose. Another rose. Poirot picks the lock with a hairpin, revealing glass vials, empty but smelling faintly of almonds. This was the source of the cyanide, hidden in plain sight. As the chapter closes, Poirot feels the puzzle tightening. Clara's locket and her connection to Haverford point to a personal motive, but the smuggling deal suggests a larger conspiracy. Was Haverford killed to silence him, or to punish him? The rose imagery note, petal, locket, crate binds the clues, but the killer's identity remains elusive. Isabella's poise, Charles's temper, Harrow's knowledge, and now Clara's secrets all clash in Poirot's mind. He knows time is running out, the police will arrive by dawn, and he must stay one step ahead. The manor's shadows are closing in, but Poirot's resolve is unshaken. Let's wrap up with a tease for what's next. In the next chapter, Poirot will follow the trail of the smuggled chemicals, leading to a tense confrontation with Lady Isabella in the garden. The dance with death is reaching its crescendo, and the truth is closer than ever. If you're loving this roller coaster, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Who's your prime suspect now? Is Clara's story true, or is she hiding a darker role? Let's keep unraveling this mystery together. The night at Haverford Manor is a tapestry of shadows and secrets, each thread pulling Hercule Poirot closer to the truth, Thor deeper into danger. The ballroom, once a glittering haven, now feels like a pressure cooker, with the guests' nerves fraying under the weight of Lord Haverford's murder. The cryptic note, the hidden journal, the secret passage, the poisoned champagne, the rose-engraved locket, and the smuggled cyanide vials have painted a picture of a calculated crime, steeped in betrayal. Clara Beaumont's revelation about her bond with Haverford and the smuggling deal has shifted the investigation. But Poirot's sharp eyes are now fixed on Lady Isabella Vane, the dancer in crimson whose elusive charm hides a sharper edge. Tonight, we'll follow Poirot into the moonlit gardens, where a tense confrontation with Isabella will unearth a truth that changes everything. If you're hooked on this mystery, brace yourself. This chapter's twists will keep you glued to your screen. Smash that like button and subscribe to stay in the dance. Let's set the scene. It's nearing 3 in the morning, and Haverford Manor feels alive with secrets, its corridors whispering with the echoes of the night's chaos. The ballroom's chandeliers flicker weakly, casting long shadows over the guests, who are now slumped in chairs or pacing nervously. Mr. Grayson, the butler, maintains order, but his own face betrays exhaustion. Poirot, however, is a dynamo of focus, his bow tie still pristine as he moves between his parlor command center and the ballroom. His clues a note: the rose wilts at midnight. Trust no one. The journal's coded warnings, the torn fabric, the cyanide vial, the punctured champagne cork, and the rose-etched crate form a constellation of evidence. Clara's locket and her story about Haverford's smuggling deal have pointed to a conspiracy. But Isabella's fleeting glances toward the garden doors nag at Poirot. The housemaid Emily's mention of a cloaked figure and the footprint beneath the study windows suggest the gardens hold answers. Before we dive into the confrontation, let's revisit our suspects, because their motives are the heartbeat of this mystery. Lady Isabella Vane, with her dancer's grace and cryptic comments, seems to know more about the garden than she admits. Sir Charles Wentworth, the military man, is a powder keg. His financial ruin and argument with Haverford a clear motive. Dr. Julian Harrow, the chemist, is a wild card. His notebook of cyanide sketches either a scientist's curiosity or a killer's blueprint. Clara Beaumont, the ward with the rose locket, is no longer just a shy debutante. Her connection to Haverford and knowledge of the smuggling deal make her a target or a threat. Emily, the housemaid, saw a shadow in the passage, but her fear suggests she's still hiding something. Poirot's mind is a whirlwind, but he's zeroing in on Isabella, whose elegance feels like a mask for something darker. Now, let's get to the heart of this chapter: the garden confrontation. Poirot slips out of the ballroom, unnoticed by the distracted guests, and heads to the garden, guided by the secret passage's exit behind the rose trellis. The night air is crisp, the moon casting a silver glow over manicured hedges and blooming roses. The garden is a maze, its paths winding past fountains and statues. But Poirot's focus is on the trellis where he found the torn fabric. As he approaches, he hears a Risella figure moving in the shadows. It's Lady Isabella, her crimson dress catching the moonlight like a flame. She's kneeling by a rose bush, her hands digging in the soil. Poirot steps forward, his voice calm, but firm. Madame Vane, the garden is a curious place for a dancer at this hour. Isabella startles, her eyes flashing with defiance, but she recovers quickly, brushing dirt from her hands. I needed air, Monsieur Poirot. This house suffocates. Poirot isn't fooled. He notices a small trowel beside her, its blade caked with fresh earth, and a glint of metal half buried in the soil, a key, etched with a rose. He picks it up, ignoring Isabella's protest. Madame, what does it unlock? Isabella's composure cracks, her voice sharp. It's nothing, a trinket I dropped. But Poirot's little gray cells are buzzing. Matches the locket, the crate, the petal, a pattern that screams intent. He presses her, mentioning the cloaked figure and the secret passage. Isabella laughs, but it's forced. You see conspiracies everywhere, monsieur. I was dancing, not sneaking through tunnels. Yet her hands tremble, and Poirot spots a smudge of white powder on her glove, cyanide. Perhaps? He tucks the key into his pocket, vowing to find what it opens. Here's a tip to keep you engaged, 'cause mysteries like this thrive on observation. Poirot's genius lies in noticing the small things: a smudged glove, a buried key. In your own life, train yourself to spot the details others miss. If you're solving a problem, write down every observation, no matter how trivial, and look for patterns. It's how you crack the case, whether it's a murder or a personal puzzle. Back to the story, Poirot challenges Isabella further, asking about her connection to Haverford. She admits to knowing him professionally, hired to perform at the ball, but denies any deeper tie. The journal's mention of a dancer with a serpent smile lingers in Poirot's mind. He asks about the smuggling deal, and Isabella's eyes narrow. Haverford played dangerous games, she says. Crossed the wrong people. Her words hint at knowledge, but is she a witness or a player? Poirot decides to test the key, suspecting it unlocks something in the manor. He returns to the study, Isabella trailing reluctantly, her protests growing weaker. The key fits a small safe behind Haverford's portrait, revealing a bundle of letters tied with a red ribbon. The letters are from Isabella to Haverford, written in a coded script similar to the journal. Poirot decodes one. The shipment arrives tonight. Be ready at midnight. His heart races. This ties Isabella to the smuggling deal and the midnight meeting that never happened. Madame, you have much to explain, he says, his voice steel. Isabella's facade crumbles. She admits she was Haverford's contact for the chemical shipment, hired by a foreign syndicate, but swears she didn't kill him. I was to deliver the key, she says. Someone else got to him first. Poirot's not convinced. Her glove, the powder, the key all point to guilt. As the confrontation ends, Poirot feels the mystery tightening. Isabella's role in the smuggling deal makes her a prime suspect, but her fear suggests she's not the mastermind. The letters confirm the deal was high stakes, but who else was involved? Sir Charles's financial woes, Clara's locket, Harrow's expertise will swirl in Poirot's mind. The rose imagery binds everything, but the killer's motive remains elusive. He escorts Isabella back to the ballroom, keeping the letters and key, knowing the police are hours away.
At the garden.
The garden has revealed its secrets, but the dance is far from over. The night at Haverford Manor is a crucible of tension, each moment forging new revelations in the fire of Lord Haverford's murder. The ballroom, once a beacon of elegance, now feels like a trap, its opulent chandeliers casting jagged shadows over the guests who are fraying under the weight of suspicion. Hercule Poirot, his sharp mind cutting through the chaos, stands as the calm eye of the storm. The cryptic note, the hidden journal, the secret passage, the poisoned champagne, Clara's rose-engraved locket, the rose-etched key, and Lady Isabella's coded letters have woven a complex web of deceit. Isabella's confession about her role in a smuggling syndicate has cracked the case open. But Poirot knows the true killer. The shadowy figure behind the cyanide remains elusive. In this chapter, we'll chase the syndicate's shadow, uncovering a connection that binds the guests in a deadly pact. If you're gripped by this mystery, brace yourself for a chapter packed with suspense that'll keep you glued to your seat. Smash that like button and subscribe to dive deeper into the dance with death. Let's set the scene. It's nearing. For in the morning, in Haverford Manor is a fortress of secrets, its grand halls heavy with the weight of betrayal. The ballroom's golden glow has faded. placed by flickering gas lamps that highlight the guests' weary faces. Mr. Grayson? The butler stands guard, his stern demeanor barely masking his own unease. The guests, Lady Isabella Vane, Sir Charles Wentworth, Dr. Julian Harrow, and Clara Beaumont are confined, their whispers sharp with accusation and fear. Poirot, his bow tie still impeccable, moves between the ballroom and his makeshift parlor. Command center, where his clues are laid out like pieces of a shattered mosaic. The note the rose wilts at midnight. Trust no one, the journal's coded warnings, the torn fabric from the garden, the cyanide vial, the punctured champagne cork, the rose-etched crate, Clara's locket, and Isabella's letters. The smuggling deal involving rare chemicals, like cyanide, points to a conspiracy larger than a single murder, and Poirot suspects the syndicate has operatives among the guests. Before we plunge into the heart of this chapter, let's revisit our suspects, because their tangled motives are the pulse of this mystery. Lady Isabella Vane, the dancer in crimson, is now tied to the syndicate. Her role as a courier for the chemical shipment making her a prime suspect, yet her fear suggests she's not the mastermind. Sir Charles Wentworth, the blustering military, man admitted to investing in Haverford's schemes. His financial ruin, a motive that could have turned deadly. Dr. Julian Harrow, the chemist, is a puzzle. His notebook filled with cyanide formulas that could be scientific curiosity or a killer's blueprint. Clara Beaumont, the ward with the rose locket, knows about the smuggling deal. Her emotional outburst hinting at deeper involvement, and Emily, the housemaid, saw a cloaked figure in the secret passage, but her silence suggests she's protecting someone nor herself. Poirot's goal is to unmask the syndicate's true player, the one who turned a business deal into murder. Now, let's dive into the core of this chapter, the syndicate's shadow. Poirot begins by decoding more of Isabella's letters, which he found in the safe behind Haverford's portrait. The letters, written in a cipher matching the journal, mention coded names: the general, the scholar, the rose, and the serpent. Poirot deduces that the serpent is Isabella, her dancer's grace, a perfect cover for espionage. The general likely refers to Sir Charles, whose military background fits the moniker. The scholar points to Dr. Harrow, whose chemical expertise aligns with the smuggling of cyanide. And the rose? Clara's locket and her nickname from Haverford make her the obvious candidate. The letters detail a plan. Haverford was to broker a shipment of rare chemicals to a foreign buyer at midnight, with Isabella delivering the key to a secure location, but the murder at 10 o'clock suggests betrayal. Someone disrupted the plan. Poirot needs to know why. To unravel this, Poirot focuses on the ledger he found in the rose-etched crate in the kitchen. The ledger lists payments to the general, the scholar, the serpent, and a mysterious the shadow, dated the day of the ball. The amounts are staggering thousands of pounds, far beyond a simple business deal. Haverford's name appears as the broker, but the payment to the shadow stands out, suggesting an outsider or a traitor within the syndicate. Poirot's mind races. Was the shadow the cloaked figure Emily saw in the passage, or the one Isabella mentioned near the garden doors? He decides to confront the guests, using the ledger to provoke a reaction. Gathering them in the ballroom, he announces Mies. Amos, Lord Haverford, was part of a syndicate, and one of you betrayed him. The room tenses, eyes darting between suspects. Poirot starts with Sir Charles, whose temper flares at the mention of the general. Haverford ruined me. Charles roars, admitting he invested heavily in the chemical deal, hoping to save his estate. But I didn't kill him. I wanted my money. His outburst confirms his role, but his desperation suggests he's not the mastermind. Poirot then turns to Dr. Harrow, asking about the scholar. Harrow's cold eyes meet his, and he admits to advising Haverford on the chemical's properties, claiming it was consulting work. But when Poirot mentions the cyanide formula in his notebook, Harrow stiffens, insisting it was theoretical. Poirot's not convinced. The formula matches the powdered cyanide used in the murder. Clara, when asked about the rose, bursts into tears, repeating that she begged Haverford to abandon the deal. He said it was for my future. She sobs, but her eyes avoid Isabella's. hinting at rivalry or fear. Here's a tip to keep you hooked, because this mystery is as much about strategy as suspense. Poirot's strength is provocation. He uses truth to unsettle suspects, watching for cracks in their facades. In your own challenges, whether solving a problem or navigating conflict, try this. Ask pointed questions and observe reactions. Body. Language clenched fists, averted eyes, often reveals more than words. Write down what you see and connect it to the facts. Back to the story, Poirot's gambit pays off. Clara's outburst escalates when Isabella snaps. Stop playing the innocent, Clara. You knew everything. The accusation electrifies the room, and Clara retorts, "You're the one who lured him into this." Poirot steps in, calming the chaos, but notes the tension between the women. Is it jealousy, or something deeper tied to the syndicate? To dig further, Poirot questions Emily, the housemaid, in private. Her fear is palpable, but under gentle pressure, she reveals more about the cloaked figure she saw in the passage. It was a man, she whispers, tall with a low voice, not one of the guests. This rules out Charles and Harrow, who were in the ballroom, but introduces a new player, the shadow, perhaps. Emily also admits she saw Clara near the kitchen before the ball, speaking to a man in a cloak who handed her a small package. Poirot's mind flashes to the cyanide vials in the rose-etched crate. Was Clara delivering the poison, or was she coerced? He thanks Emily, urging her to stay safe, and returns to the kitchen to re-examine the crate. Inside, he finds a hidden note overlooked before the shadow watches. Midnight is too late. The handwriting matches the cryptic note found on Haverford's body, tying the shadow to the murder. Poirot's next move is to trace the syndicate's operations. Within the manor, he inspects the secret passage again, following its twists to a hidden exit near the stables. There he finds fresh wheel marks, evidence of a vehicle, perhaps used to deliver the chemical shipment. A scrap of paper caught in the gravel reads, "Payment secured. Shadow takes all." This suggests the shadow double-crossed the syndicate, killing Haverford to seize control of the deal. But who is this figure? Poirot considers an outsider a rival smuggler, perhaps, but the guests' reactions point to someone closer. He recalls the torn fabric from the garden, dark and coarse, unlike any guest's attire. Could it belong to a hired operative, or someone posing as staff? As the chapter nears its end, Poirot gathers the guests again, this time revealing the note about the shadow. Rumor ups Charles accuses Harrow. Harrow points to Isabella, and Clara collapses, sobbing. Poirot watches, noting every flinch, every glance. The syndicate's shadow looms large, but the killer's identity is still veiled. The ledger, the coded names, and the note suggest a betrayal within the group. But the shadow could be an outsider exploiting their greed. Poirot knows the police are hours away and the manor's secrets are running out of time to hide. His little gray cells are The air in Haverford Manor is thick with dread, the weight of Lord Haverford's murder pressing down on every soul within its walls. The ballroom, once a stage of opulence, now feels like a courtroom, with Hercule Poirot as both judge and jury. His little gray cells are ablaze, weaving together the cryptic note, the hidden journal, the secret passage, the poisoned champagne, Clara's rose-engraved locket, the rose-etched key, Isabella's coded letters, and the syndicate's ledger. The revelation of the shadow, a mysterious figure tied to the smuggling deal and the murder, has tightened the noose around the suspects. The guests, Lady Isabella Vane, Sir Charles Wentworth, Dr. Julian Harrow, and Clara Beaumont, unraveling their secrets, spilling like the champagne that killed their host. In this chapter, Poirot will uncover a hidden letter that reveals the shadow's identity, leading to a dramatic standoff that could cost him everything. If you're hooked on this heart-pounding mystery, buckle up. This chapter's twists will leave you speechless. Smash that like button and subscribe to catch the climax of this deadly dance. Set the scene. It's past 4 a.m, and Haverford Manor is a labyrinth of shadows, its grand halls echoing with the tension of an unresolved crime. The ballroom's chandeliers flicker like dying stars, casting uneasy light over the guests, who are slumped in chairs or pacing with frayed nerves. Mr. Grayson, The butler stands rigid, his eyes darting between the suspects, as if expecting. Another scream. Poirot, his suit still pristine, moves with quiet purpose, his mind a storm of connections. His clues: the note the rose wilts at midnight. Trust no one. The journal's coded warnings. The torn fabric from the garden. The cyanide vial. The punctured champagne cork. The rose-etched crate. Clara's locket. Isabella's letters. And the syndicate's ledger form a puzzle nearing completion. The note about the shadow found in the kitchen, combined with Emily's sighting of a cloaked figure, points to a traitor within or beyond the syndicate. Poirot knows the truth is close, but danger is closer. Before we dive into the letter, let's recap our suspects, because their tangled web drives this mystery. Lady Isabella Vane, the dancer in crimson, is a syndicate courier. Her coded letters tying her to the chemical smuggling deal, but her fear suggests she's not the mastermind. Sir Charles Wentworth, the military man, invested in the deal too. Save his estate, his temper and desperation making him volatile. Dr. Julian Harrow, the chemist, knows too much about cyanide, his notebook a potential blueprint for murder. Clara Beaumont, Haverford's ward, is linked by her rose locket and knowledge of the deal. Her emotional outbursts hinting at guilt or coercion. Emily, the housemaid, saw a cloaked man in the passage, her fear suggesting she's protecting someone. Poirot's goal is to unmask the shadow, and he suspects the ballroom itself holds the final clue. Now, let's plunge into the heart of this chapter, the hidden letter. Poirot returns to the ballroom, his eyes scanning every detail: the floral arrangements, the abandoned instruments, the scattered glasses. He recalls the vial of cyanide hidden behind a rose bouquet near Haverford's table, a deliberate placement. Kneeling by the table, he sifts through the flowers, his gloved fingers brushing against a folded piece of paper tucked beneath a vase. It's a letter, sealed with a wax stamp, bearing a rose, emblem another rose. Tying it to the note, the locket, the crate, and the key. Poirot opens it carefully, his pulse quickening. The letter is brief but explosive. The shadow strikes at 10. Haverford must not reach midnight. Payment in full awaits. The handwriting matches the note found on Haverford's body, and the mention of 10 confirms the murder's timing was no accident. The shadow planned to kill Haverford before the syndicate's midnight deal. Poirot's mind races. The letter suggests the shadow is an outsider, hired to disrupt the syndicate's plan. But who? He examines the wax seal closely, noticing a faint insignia: coiled snake, subtle but unmistakable. The serpent imagery points back to Isabella, the journal's dancer with a serpent's smile. Yet Isabella was in the ballroom at 10, dancing under 100 eyes. Could she have hired the shadow? Poirot considers the other suspects. Sir Charles was arguing loudly with guests at the time of the murder. His alibi strong, but his motive stronger. Dr. Harrow was seen near the bar, his notebook in hand, but his expertise makes him a candidate for orchestrating the poison. Clara was near Haverford's table, her locket a damning clue, but her tears seemed genuine. And what of Emily's cloaked man, described as tall and not a guest? Poirot senses the shadow is close, perhaps too close. Here's a tip to keep you riveted. Because mysteries like this thrive on precision. Poirot's genius lies in connecting symbols: the rose, the serpent, the shadow. In your own challenges, whether solving a problem or unraveling a conflict, look for recurring patterns. Write them down, map them out, and ask what they signify. It's how you find the hidden truth. Back to the story, Poirot decides to provoke the suspects with the letter, hoping to flush out the shadow.
Ow.
He gathers the guests in the ballroom, his voice calm but commanding. Miss Amos, I have found a letter that names the shadow, the one who killed Lord Haverford. The room freezes. Isabella's eyes narrow. Charles's face reddens. Harold's hand tightens on his notebook, and Clara gasps, clutching her locket. Poirot reads the letter aloud, watching for reactions. The shadow strikes at 10, he says, pausing. Who among you knew this plan? The ballroom erupts. Sir Charles accuses Isabella, shouting, She's the serpent, poisoning us all. Isabella fires back. You're the one who lost everything to Haverford's schemes. Harrow remains silent, but his eyes dart to Clara, who's trembling. Poirot zeroes in on her, asking, "Mademoiselle, the rose in your locket, did it come from the shadow?" Clara shakes her head, sobbing, "I didn't know. Only kept it because he loved me." Her outburst confirms her bond with Haverford, but muddies her role. Poirot shifts to Harrow, mentioning the snake insignia. Harrow denies any connection, but his notebook still in Poirot's possession includes a sketch of a coiled snake. Beside a cyanide formula, is it coincidence or evidence? To dig deeper, Poirot questions Emily again, pulling her aside in the parlor. Her fear is palpable, but she admits more under his gentle probing. The cloaked man she saw in the passage spoke with a foreign accent, mentioning the rose and payment. Emily overheard him near the kitchen, where the rose-etched crate was stored. Poirot's mind flashes to the ledger's payment too. The shadow. Was this man a hired killer sent to eliminate Haverford? He asks Emily to describe him further, but she only recalls his height and a scar on his hand visible when he adjusted his cloak. This detail is new, and Poirot files it away, knowing it could identify the shadow. He thanks Emily, urging her to stay silent for her safety, and returns to the ballroom. Poirot's next move is to search for physical evidence tying the shadow to the letter. He revisits Haverford's table, noticing a faint scratch on the floor near the vasa mark from a heavy boot, not a guest's polished shoe. It matches the wheel marks he found near the stables, suggesting the shadow entered through the secret passage and left via the garden. Poirot also examines the torn fabric from the garden again, realizing it's not coarse cloth, but a piece of a cloak, dark and finely woven, possibly foreign-made. The scar, the cloak, the accent all point to an outsider, but one with intimate knowledge of the manor's layout and the syndicate's plan. Poirot suspects a double cross. Someone among the guests hired the shadow to betray Haverford. As the standoff looms, Poirot gathers the suspects one last time, holding up the letter and the fabric. "The shadow is near," he says, his voice cutting through the tension. A man with a scar, a cloak, and a motive to kill before midnight. Isabella gasps, Charles curses, Harrow freezes, and Clara collapses into a chair. Suddenly, a noise crash from the garden doors. Poirot spins, catching a glimpse of a tall figure in a cloak, slipping into the night. He gives chase, the guests shouting behind him, but the figure vanishes into the maze of hedges. Poirot finds only a dropped cigarette case, engraved with a snake. The shadow was here, watching, and now the dawn is creeping over Haverford Manor, its pale light seeping through the ballroom's tall windows, but the shadows of the night's secrets still cling to every corner. Hercule Poirot stands at the heart of the storm, his little gray cells blazing as he holds the threads of a deadly tapestry, the cryptic note, hidden journal, the secret passage, the poisoned champagne, Clara's rose-engraved locket, the rose-ingest key, Isabella's coded letters, the syndicate's ledger, and the letter naming the shadow. The cloaked figure with a scarred hand glimpsed in the garden has brought the mystery to a fever pitch. The guest Lady Isabella Vane, Sir Charles Wentworth, Dr. Julian Harrow, Clara Beaumont, and even the housemaid Emily are teetering on the edge, their lies and motives unraveling. In this final chapter, Poirot will unmask the shadow, tying every Claire's serpent and cyanide into a shocking revelation that ends the dance with death. If you've been gripped by this mystery, hold tight, this finale will blow you away. Smash that like button, subscribe, and let's waltz to the truth together. Let's set the stage. The ballroom is a ghost of its former glory, its chandeliers dim, the air heavy with the scent of roses and fear. It's just past 5 in the morning, August 4th, 2025, and the guests are exhausted, their faces etched with dread as they await the police, expected at dawn. Mr. Grayson, the butler, stands by the doors, his composure fraying. Poirot, his suit still impeccable, is a beacon of calm, clutching the cigarette case with the snake engraving, the letter naming the shadow, and his mental map of clues. The note, the rose wilts at midnight. Trust no one, the journals. Warnings, the torn cloak fabric, the cyanide vial, the punctured cork, the rose-etched crate. Etched Clara's locket, Isabella's letters, and the ledger's payments. The shadow, a scarred man with a foreign accent, is the key. But Poirot suspects a mastermind among the guests orchestrated the murder. The manor is a ticking clock, and the truth must be revealed now. Before we unveil the shadow, let's revisit our suspects, because their tangled web has fueled this deadly dance. Lady Isabella Vane, the dancer in crimson, is a syndicate courier. Her letters tying her to the chemical smuggling deal, but her fear suggests she's a pawn, not the killer. Sir Charles Wentworth, the military man, invested in the deal to save his estate, his temper a motive, but his alibi strong. Dr. Julian Harrow, the chemist, knows cyanide intimately. His notebook, a potential blueprint for murder. Clara Beaumont, Haverford's ward, is linked by her rose locket and knowledge of the deal, her tears masking guilt or coercion. Emily, the housemaid, saw a cloaked man with a scarred hand, her silence hinting at protection or fear. Poirot's goal is to tie the shadow to one of them, and he knows the ballroom holds the final piece. Now, let's dive into the heart of this chapter, the unmasking of the shadow. Poirot gathers the guests in the ballroom, his voice steady but electric. Mise en scène, the dance with death ends tonight. The shadow, the one who poisoned Lord Haverford, is among us. The room freezes, eyes wide with panic. He holds up the cigarette case, its snake engraving glinting. This belongs to the killer, a man with a scarred hand hired to strike at 10. He pauses, watching Isabella's clenched jaw, Charles's flushed face, Harrow's cold stare, and Clara's trembling hands. Poirot begins to unravel the clues, starting with the rose imagery. The rose, he says, appears in the note, the locket, the crate, the key, a symbol of trust, betrayed. He turns to Clara. Mademoiselle, your locket named you the rose, but you were not the target, Haverford was. Clara sobs, but Poirot shifts to Isabella, holding up her letters. Ah! Madame Vane, as the serpent you delivered the key for the syndicate's deal, but you feared the shadow. Isabella nods, admitting she was coerced by a foreign contact, a man with a scar who threatened her life. Poirot then faces Sir Charles, the general whose investment tied him to the deal. Charles roars, I didn't kill him. I needed him alive for the money. Poirot nods, believing his desperation. Harrow, the scholar, is next, his notebook damning. Doctor, your cyanide formula matches the murder weapon, Poirot says. Harrow protests, claiming he only advised Haverford, but his sketch of a snake insignia betrays him. Poirot's eyes narrow. Harrow is close to the truth, but not the whole story. Here's a tip to keep you hooked, because this finale is about precision. Poirot's genius is synthesizing every clue into a single truth. In your own challenges, whether solving a mystery or a problem, list every detail, then find the thread that binds them. Patterns reveal the answer. Back to the story, Poirot reveals the letter naming the shadow. Its mention of 10 proving the murder was planned to preempt the midnight deal. He recalls Emily's description of a tall man with a scarred hand and a foreign accent, seen in the passage, but no guess fits perfectly. Charles and Harrow were in the ballroom, and no one has a scar. Poirot's mind flashes to the cigarette case, its snake matching Harrow's sketch and Isabella's letters. He suddenly turns to Mr. Grayson, the butler, who's been silent all night. Mr. Grayson, Poirot says, stepping toward him, you have served quietly, but your hands show it. The room gasps as Grayson hesitates, then reveals a scarred hand, hidden by gloves until now. Poirot continues, you are the shadow, hired by the syndicate to kill Haverford when he threatened to expose the deal. Grayson's face hardens, but he denies nothing. Poirot pieces it together. Grayson, with access to the passage, the kitchen, and the champagne, injected the cyanide into Haverford's bottle, using his role as butler to move unseen. The torn cloak was his, dropped in the garden during his escape. The cigarette case, left behind in his haste, bears his initials J, beneath the snake. Emily's description fits. Tall, foreign accent, scarred hand. Poirot explains the motive. Haverford planned to betray the syndicate, revealing their smuggling to authorities at midnight. As the journals trust only the shadow implied, he trusted Grayson to protect him. But Grayson, loyal to the syndicate, struck first, using cyanide supplied by Harrow's formula and delivered via Isabella's key. Clara's locket and rose imagery were red herrings, meant to distract from Grayson's role. Charles's temper and Harrow's expertise made them easy scapegoats. Poirot confronts Grayson. "You poisoned the champagne?" Used the passage and fled to the garden. "But your cigarette case betrayed you." Grayson lunges for the door, but Poirot, anticipating this, signals to footmen who restrain him. Guests are stunned, Clara sobbing, Isabella pale, Charles silent, Harrow grim. As the police arrive, Poirot wraps up the case. "The dance with death was a waltz of greed," he says. Haverford's betrayal cost him his life, and Grayson, the shadow, was the syndicate's blade. The rose imagery symbolized Haverford's trust in Clara, but the serpent Grayson's true allegiance struck first. Poirot hands the evidence to the police, his mustache twitching with satisfaction. The manor's secrets are laid bare, and justice will follow. Let's wrap up this epic tale. The dance with death has ended, but its echoes linger. If you've loved this journey, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Drop a comment. Did you guess Grayson was the shadow? What was your favorite twist? Thank you for waltzing with Poirot through this thrilling mystery. Stay tuned for more adventures, and let's keep unraveling the truth together.